Of course, as soon as you get over here, it starts getting windy. Whatever. It's part of the ambiance.
Yeah, I think so. 3 geese last night.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, what is up, everyone? Today is Saturday, May 3rd, and me and Chris are on my front porch on a very lovely sunny day, and you are listening to Outdoor Cats. Outdoor Cats outside. It's so refreshing. It's so nice to be out in the pleasant spring day. Chris, how are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling real good about it. My allergies are fucking kicking, but otherwise, yeah, it is 80 degrees. It's beautiful. There's a nice breeze, and sitting on the porch with a beer, and
fuck yeah,
just really couldn't ask for anything better. Yeah, I think we said it last time. We're just gonna record outside all the time. I don't know if I told this story last time. I don't think I did, but when I was a kid and I found out that you can pee outside, I didn't pee inside for like an entire summer. This feels very similar.
Yeah, because why would you?
Yeah, no, peeing outside's way better, and so is recording.
Yeah. That's awesome. You're like, oh, this is the best.
I really was like, wow, I can pee in the woods outside. I'm not, why would I do anything besides that?
The thought has never occurred to me. Oh, man. Well, we got a lot to talk about. We have a ton. We just keep getting bludgeoned by these insane news weeks in Worcester.
Yeah.
Basically, since we've started this show, we've just wrought news karma upon the city. They're like, hey, you guys need something to talk about, right? So we're gonna give you 5 or 6 things every week.
Borderline too much every single week, relentlessly.
Yeah, we're gonna get run ragged. Oh my god, the insane writer's block I had from just being burnt out this week was crazy. I had to I posted a picture of it on Blue Sky or whatever, but I had to basically develop a typewriter out of putting my phone on airplane mode and connecting a USB keyboard to it, and I just sat out here and couldn't look at anything but that, and that's how I had to get the post done. Then I went back and filled it in with links and citations and stuff, but just sat out here because what I wrote about extensively was sort of the death knell of the DOJ investigation. Just realizing that that's not going to go anywhere at all, right? So that was tough. And we'll have to we got to talk about that for sure. But I want to start with something else just for my own sanity. There was a moment during the meeting. There's actually a few moments that I've stitched together where the subject of needles in parks came up, and city council candidate Charles Lester, who some of our listeners might remember is the guy who posted the 4 or 5 year old video of people doing drugs behind the village or near the village, whatever. And he posted it I want to say 3 weeks ago now. And made a lot of people angry by doing it because it's just people's full faces and filmed mockingly to doing drugs. So he came to council during public comment to address that, and then everyone sort of forgot about it, but then Christian King brought it up at the end of the meeting, and what he said was fine, but what Mo Bergman said was some of the ugliest rhetoric about unhoused people I have heard anyone say in the city. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I'm going to cue up the clip here, but Chris, I wonder if you have any takes on the video incident, specifically before we get to Charles Lester explaining himself.
I do, and I have mostly not talked about this except with a few people who know, but I guess I feel okay talking about it. But a thing that this video crashes into my world in a very odd way, but a very direct way. So this video is from 2019, 2020, and it's in the space that's behind the Village. But at the time, the Village was Stone Soup. And at the time, I was the president of the board of Stone Soup, which means nothing except that I was the primary person who would get yelled at by the police and the city and the neighbors and everybody else. And I cannot describe to you how bad the situation was at that point. People are always sort of getting moved around and told, this is where you can go, do illegal shit, and we probably won't bother you until we decide to push you. And for the better part of a year, the place that was the back of Stone Soup on King Street.
Yeah.
And every single day, we were inundated with dozens and dozens and dozens of people coming to use drugs in the backspace there. And I want to be very careful about how I talk about this, but it was a horrible situation. It was a horrible situation because we were not in any way equipped to help people, really. We did our best to have needle boxes and have, Narcan. And I must have Narcan 25 people in that spring and summer of 2020. But we got no help from anyone. And the police would come and yell at us, and code would come and yell at us, and the neighborhood association would come and yell at us. But nobody did anything to help. Charles Lester certainly didn't do anything to help. I didn't know who the fuck he was at the time. But, it was a really traumatic experience for everyone. We were cleaning human waste and needles every single day, and every single day you'd come back and there was more, and it was just this terrible situation, and, trying to keep the property safe and sanitary and also, treat people with dignity, which, frankly, can feel hard to do when you're in the thick of this, week after week after week. But I think we really tried. It drove me out of the organization. I resigned that summer because I just had too much. And so, anyway, that was a long story to say, fuck you, Charles Lester. I don't appreciate that you politicized that really intense, terrible moment, especially when you weren't even around. Charles Lester wasn't there. Charles Lester wasn't giving people Narcan and trying to pull them out of overdoses. He wasn't doing shit, so...
Right. And to politicize it in the way he has politicized it, is to use it as a cudgel against the city council as it stands right now, being it's your fault that people are doing drugs in the city, which is crazy. Yeah. But it sidesteps the issue in two ways, because the first way is that it doesn't address at all that you guys were in the middle of an actively kept containment zone where the cops just push people they don't want to deal with.
Yeah, and to be clear, the reason that Stone Soup became specifically why 4 King Street became the spot was because we were adamant that we, as an organization, as a collective, were not interested in criminalizing people and calling the police on them. Right. And so the police took advantage of this by saying, if you want to, if you're in Main South and you want to shoot up, go to King Street. They won't call the cops on you. That's how it happened.
Yeah, right.
It was a problem of their making that they just didn't deal with in any way except to come and yell at. I was threatened with criminal charges. They told me they might charge me criminally, me personally, for keeping a disorderly house or keeping a disorderly property.
Jesus.
So that was their solution. But yeah, no, it was absolutely a containment zone, and we were left to be in the middle of it, and it was
Right.
a really, really shitty situation that nobody assisted us with, like in any meaningful way.
And then the second way that I want to point out what has been left unanswered in this this politicization of a 4-year-old video of people doing drugs in the city is what aren't they doing that you would have them do? What is the city not doing right now that you want them to do? That's a very important part of this. Like, what do you have in mind? And that goes unanswered, right?
Yeah.
He's never addressed that part. So I think that's a pretty good way to get into the clip. I'll just probably play the whole thing. This is him talking at public comment on Tuesday.
Charles Luster, City of Worcester resident, 11H, about Elm Park. As some of you saw, I posted a video. I'd like to start out saying to the family, I'm sorry if I hurt your family, but you guys are part of the problem sometimes. We picked up over 100 needles. I only had one city councilor call me about that. And it wasn't even a district city council. I know it's a campaign year, but to me, our kids come first. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was me teaching at Webster Square Daycare Center where the kids couldn't go outside because there were so many needles in a city park. That's what this is about. It's about we got a problem. If we had so many needles, my question is, did the AIDS virus rates go up in our community? Where is our public safety? Where is our public safety? Please help me help the future. And I don't want to throw blame because we're all blamed for this. We're all blamed for this because we vote on things and things we think that are good, but it shows. Look, we got youth in here waiting to speak. Let's do something for them. Let's do something. That's our future. Let's do something for our future. Let's stop arguing this side versus that side. When I look at it, it's crazy. At the end of the day, we're here for the citizens. We're not here for your perfect little agendas that you have or your special little groups. We're here for the citizens. It's crazy sitting back watching this. I got 11 seconds. I'm getting ready to shoot a 3. Have your campaign team stop threatening me.
Right. So,
Okay.
did you hear any proposed solution in that?
I sure didn't. Yeah, what I did hear, I wonder if they're here for the residents. Do those residents include people who are dealing with substance use disorder? It's not really clear.
Right. Who do we mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because I would love to have the city be talking about actual things that we could do about this. One thing that we could definitely do that is not going to pass muster with anything resembling our current city council would be to have a safe injection site.
Yep.
A place where people could go and use drugs safely with the supervision of medical professionals so that if they fall out or something goes wrong, they don't die. I'd love to ask Charles Luster how he feels about that. I have some guesses what his answer might be, but
Yeah.
you know, I should be fair. Also, the families are part of the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. There's two ways of reading that comment. I think that when he said "you guys," it was directed at the city council, because like you can't see it, and especially with our setup right now, you couldn't see it. But he's like he's scanning the room when he says that. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
think that he was talking about how the city council is the problem.
Fair enough.
And I mean, yes, obviously, but I have a strong suspicion that it's not in the way that he thinks, right?
Yeah, and I think we've kind of talked about this with all sorts of, with issues of homelessness and drug use and just kind of the building sense, I think the very real building sense that, every time you're downtown, but not just downtown, you see more people on the streets, you see more encampments, you see more people who are obviously unhoused. And when I hear people talk about them in this way, the thing that's always missing is, what do you propose to do about this? And I think it's because the answer is, like, they just kind of want them to go away and they don't really care how. And you
Right.
can leave that as an exercise to the listener, what that means. If it's incarceration, if it's, dying, I don't know. But the as far as they seem to get is, we just want them to not be here. And I think that's why we hear so much, they're not even from here. They're invaders from outside.
Right, right. It alleviates them of the responsibility
Yes.
of considering them to be human beings.
Yes.
And, I mean, yeah, there are things that the city could easily do if they were motivated to mitigate the problem of needles being, like, disposed of like on the ground and shit. I mean, if there were just sharps boxes everywhere, if they invested resources, like significant resources, in cleaning it up, and if there was a safe injection site, then, I mean, we probably wouldn't be having as bad of a problem.
All signs and data point to the fact that it at least would reduce the problem. And it would give a thing to point to be like, hey, don't, shoot up in the back of the park and throw your needles here. Go to this place.
Right. And, I mean, I've been saying this for 4 fucking years now. I'll say it again. This is a manifestly a product of destabilizing and shuffling around and constantly relocating encampments. Because, like, it's not suitable. Everyone should have housing. Everyone should have a place inside where they live. But absent that, like, people need a place that's theirs, right? That they can just be and exist. That's, like, a very fundamental, basic human right. And, like, whatever word you want to use, unsanitary, whatever, as it is, a stable encampment that you can build up and you can come back to and you won't be hassled at is better than not having that in the absence of having a place to live.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it is both true that there are more people unhoused than there were several years ago, and also it is definitely very true that a lot of what feels like there are so many more people out in the open on the streets is because the city has had a policy of busting up the encampments that used to exist. There used to be a lot of people who were unhoused who you probably mostly never saw because they lived deep in an encampment behind Walmart or, up in East Park where I used to run into the encampments. I used to hike up there a lot. And Bill, you were on this beat sort of at the middle end or end of, kind of the last of the encampment era before they really started not letting people have a moment's peace. But yeah, encampments are not anywhere that people should have to live. People should have a house. They should have a home with 4 walls and a roof, and running water and a toilet. But if we're not going to give them that, there are a lot of values to an encampment. Some amount of sanitary work and trash cleanup and stuff like that can happen and usually does. The encampment I used to run into, or the big one up in East Park, was pretty well maintained for an encampment where people had to carry shit out a pretty long way to get it taken care of. When that encampment became an absolute disaster was when the police went up there, threw everyone out, slashed all of their tents, and then just left everything there.
Yep.
Like, they didn't pick it up. It was there, I know it was there an entire summer at least. And then there was a huge pile of trash in the woods because they threw everybody out and they cut up all their shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, encampments are at least less bad for a number of reasons. People get to know the people that they're camping around. They build trust. They look out for each other. That people who are unhoused also deserve a sense of community. That's a really important thing that we hopefully all have when we live in, where we live. We get to know our neighbors maybe, and, we look out for each other. And that is another thing that people get in encampments that we're taking away from them and making them just kind of run all over the place like rats when the lights get turned.
Right. And if you're going to just approach this from like the very cynical point of view that needles are blight and the people who use needles are by extension blight, and all you care about is the blight, it's still better because the encampments are where the needles are going to be and they're not as likely to be other places. So it's really like it's this like 6, 7, 8 year long policy of routine encampment sweeps that are contributing significantly to the problem of needles being in places where children play, which is not good. I think that the bullshit that we're most likely to face by the way that we're talking about it right now is like being accused of being like, oh, so you think it's just fine that there's needles in like places where kids play? You're like, absolutely not. Of course not. Right? Like, it's just it's everything that the city has been doing and everything that somebody like Charles Luster would have them do is counterproductive to the goal of having there be less needles in play areas.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I think we've talked about the again, proposal that went nowhere for a sanctioned encampment. And I think that conversation came up some then. And yeah, just to be clear, no, I don't think people should have to live outside in an encampment. I think they should have homes. But if we're not doing that, what's the least bad thing that we could offer them? And you've talked to people on the streets. I've talked to people on the streets. Like, they're people with pretty, normal sets of values and stuff that have just, gotten into a bad situation for some. But, like, I guess what I'm getting at is, like, these people also don't want to, live in a place where it's a pile of needles and there's, human shit and garbage. Like, if we gave them a solution that could minimize that and provided them some basic sanitary services, my strong suspicion is that they would utilize them.
Right. But
we don't.
We don't. And I think that's very important to stress because this always gets written off so quickly when most city hall people, when people of the prevailing city hall order talk about this, they'll just very quickly say, we offer services and there are shelters. And while both of those things are technically true, it obscures the biggest problem, which is we have a deficit, constantly running deficit in even the triage temporary shelter space. We just have Queen Street, which has a horrible reputation for most of the year. And we, during the Ed Augustus years, we, with great fanfare, announced the construction of all of this permanent supportive housing. Almost none of that has been built. And city councilors have been actively fighting it. Like Candy Merrill Carlson and others have been actively fighting a permanent supportive housing proposal up in the Lincoln Street area, a place that like really needs it, on Oriole Drive, I believe.
Yeah.
And like they've been like whipping the neighbors up into a frenzy about how this is going to make the problem worse. When it's like, no, it's going to make the problem. Are you kidding me? There's no problem that gets made worse by giving people who don't have a home a place to have a home.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, what is always absent from those conversations is what would you like to do? What would you like to see happen to these people? And if you don't want them in the streets where they are, and you don't want them in the parks, and you also don't want them in temporary supportive housing on Oriole Drive, which, by the way, is like at the end of a short dead-end street. The only other thing up there is like a shithole nursing home that my wife used to work at. And Spectrum is also right there, which is a good place to have, services adjacent to the people that need them. But yeah, if you don't want any of those things, what do you want? Where do you want these people to go? Or are you really just kind of saying, like, I want them to go away and I don't really care how it happens?
Right.
Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a long history with a very specific word attached to it of local politics of getting people to go away and not quite caring where they go.
Yeah.
I'd ask everyone to think really, really hard about what that logic means and what the historical precedents of that logic are. Which is a great way to get to the second clip I wanted to play. So Charles Lester makes these comments about needles. It goes unmentioned for a while. Christian King brings it back up, and he files for like a completely reasonable report to like get sort of summary best practices of other places, and also consider adopting some practices from like the National Parks and Recreation Association related to safe needle disposal. Like wonky, like good idea, whatever kind of stuff. Then Mo Bergman takes the mic, and everything we've talked about is a perfect setup to this.
Thank you. Just
Here we
very
go.
briefly through the chair, city manager. Has the quality of life team kind of reported on what's causing or causes of the accumulation of the needles? Is there a specific
Fucking
group of
asshole.
people, specific location? Is it attributable to drugs? Is it attributable to homelessness? A combination of all the above?
Mr. Manager?
Through the chair to the council, it's a combination of all the above. There are some parks that are more, I guess you could say that you could find more than others in terms of the needle activity. And so those are the parks where our quality of life team is aware of people that are engaging in those areas, and they try to do their best to spend their time there, offer services, engage folks that are there, connect homeless outreach work through agencies or through our recovery coaches here in the city to go and provide some services. So there's a number of
Services.
stuff that's happening, but it's a combination of everything that you alluded to, from unhoused individuals, substance abuse issues. You name it, it's all involved.
I asked that, thank you. I asked that question because sometimes I think we all too often, not all of us, but some of us, wave the white flag and say, all right, we know we can't do anything about it, but we just have to figure out a way to be careful in how we pick up the needle, so on and so forth. And what I don't want to do is wave that white flag, because I think, as we all know, those parks are enjoyed by the public as well as everybody.
The public as well as everybody.
Including those that unfortunately have their reasons for using drugs. So hopefully we can also look into other measures that are more preventative, as opposed to just assuming there's nothing we can do. But I would just also add that
Here
there
we
was
go.
a time not that long ago where there was a conversation on this floor about how to regulating parks and or at least making it easier for those encampments to exist in public parks. And I think we can see now the wisdom of not moving forward on that, given the situation that we're now dealing with, which is our public parks have become dumping grounds for dangerous needles. Thank you.
Jesus Christ. We can see what he's referring to there, very coyly in his Mo Bergman way, is the moratorium on encampment sweeps and the proposal for a sanctioned encampment. Either one, I mean, they happened at pretty much the same time. So he's just using that as a way to sort of like rub it in the nose of the progressives who asked for these things. But like we were just talking about before that clip, he has it completely ass fucking backwards.
Yeah, you didn't do the thing that people thought could help, and now the problem's worse, but it's because of the thing that we didn't do. Right,
we didn't do this thing, and thank God, because now the problem's really bad. It's like, it's such a warped logic, like thank God we didn't do this, or it would have been so much worse if we had just allowed people to have an encampment space. It would have been, and like, it's not just me saying that. I could go through the reams and reams and reams of studies on this issue, showing, like, qualitatively, encampment sweeps make every social problem associated with homelessness worse. That includes the needles, you know? And so it's just to hear him very smugly say, thank God we didn't turn down the cruelty dial from 11 at any point, because now we're dealing with this horrible problem and make no connection between the two. It's just, it's something else.
Yeah, and a thing I should say before we move on is a piece of data. When I was working for the bail fund and bailing people out, many of whom were unhoused and have substance use issues, a thing that a piece of data that always kind of blew my mind is that one of the highest risk factors for an overdose is a short period of incarceration.
Right.
It increases your chance of overdosing by something like 13 times. Because you go in, you cold turkey detox, it destroys your tolerance, and then you come out and you are hurting and in withdrawal, and you want to use, and you do, and you might not be able to take the same, strength that you could before that happened. It kills people all the time. I unfortunately bailed people out of jail who died of overdoses, like within days.
Yeah.
And that's, something that I think the project was it was worth doing, and people are always better outside of jail than in it. But it weighs on me, and that's a huge risk factor. And so the other thing it seems like he's kind of saying here is like, the quality of life team out there, the police out there, maybe we, need to be arresting our way out of this problem a little bit more. And that is like one of the most dangerous things that we can do. Like statistically, we know this.
Right. Statistically, it's a death sentence to fucking give people very short jail stays for very minor offenses.
Yeah, and I don't want to say directly, exactly, that Mo Bergman maybe doesn't really care if these people overdose and die, but I will say he's given me no indication that to the contrary.
Right, he's approaching. It's like a dead giveaway with him and Charles Lester. When you approach the problem from like the manifestation of it in the blight of a needle on the ground, and that is your stated objective, and you put forward a logic where it's like if there was no needle on the ground, no problem, right? The human involved in that equation is completely erased
Yeah.
from like the rhetorical picture. So it's very hard to read it another way when the human being involved is not taken into consideration at all. You
Right.
know? That's a dead giveaway, you know. So I don't know. I mean, fucking put it on the list of fucking shitty attitudes that Mo Bergman and the rest of the cranks have that keep the city worse than it could be and in a constantly regressive state, and keeps progressives in the city constantly battling just to get to regular, just to get to like normal neoliberal Democrat run city.
Yeah. Yep. And this is why at the end of the day, I don't spend a lot of time advocating for incremental solutions, because you lose anyway. And so
Right.
you might as well talk about what you really want.
Yeah, you might as well talk about what you really want. And what I really want is to see the police budget halved, at least, and that money be thrown immediately towards anything else, but especially all of the money that is spent policing homelessness is thrown towards just fucking renting, leasing, building, buying, whatever, just houses, apartments.
Yeah.
Just put people inside, and not inside a fucking jail. Put them inside a fucking house. If I had the keys to the castle, I would radically reorient the criminal justice side of the budget to accomplish that fact, because the cops are just making fucking busy work for themselves.
Yes. And we live in a city where there's not even enough housing for people who can pay a fair bit of money to get housing. If I were king, you would not be able to get down more than a street or two in this city before you'd see a building project, and it would be a Worcester Worcester Housing Authority or City of Worcester building. Like, we need lots of public housing. We know what the problem is. We are short tens of thousands of units of housing. And the only solution to that is to fucking build them.
And absent that, we're either going down the road of fascistic logic, or we're spinning our fucking wheels. If that's not the North Star, if that's not the end goal, then you don't have an end goal on this that isn't just banishment and forced removal.
Yes.
So anyway, that's a great. Anyway, I think that's a great note to end it on. Moving on to the second really cheery, amazing, super fun topic: the DOJ's investigation into the Worcester Police Department and its many abuses of power. We learned this week that we're kind of just done with that. We had a hour and a half long discussion with the chief. City councilors were allowed to ask the chief questions directly. Only 2 of them did.
Yeah,
basically.
I noticed that.
Louis Ojeda asked some questions, but not very pointed questions. They were mostly like, can you elaborate on this sort of questions? It was really only, like it always is, Attell and King asking probing questions of the chief and outlining where they felt the chief's response was insufficient. Other than that, that's 2 votes on an 11-person board. So we're looking at like a majority that just doesn't want to do anything at all with this report. Kate Toomey had the fucking balls to call it a living document that we're just gonna, it's a living. We're always just gonna be plugging away at this. We're gonna be we're just gonna be making these reforms. We're doing great. It's a living document, and Mo Bergman pointedly poo-pooed the idea of of local oversight of the police in general. He said that there's no local body that can oversee the police department. That might be a clip that's just worth digging up and playing, because that was crazy.
It's a good one. He uses some really interesting language too. He basically says like it would be impossible. It seems like what he's saying is it would be impossible for the Standing Committee on Public Safety, which he is a member, or the Human Rights Commission, or a civilian review board, or any body that is not the police itself, to be able to oversee the police department, because they would have the advantage of hindsight.
Yeah. I mean, he was working off of this hindsight's 2020 thing.
Yes, which was, by the way, those are words directly from Chief Saucier's mouth.
Yeah.
He said them, and now Mo is saying them.
Yeah. So while I'm queuing up this clip, I will just say that, like, so this is I wrote about this on my last post, which went up a couple days ago. So I'm repeating myself, but whatever. There's 3 people on the public safety subcommittee. 2 of those people, Kate Toomey and Mo Bergman, have both publicly said they don't feel like a civilian review board would be the way to go. I am not Robert's Rules of Order or like government process wonk enough to say this for a certain fact, but I am going to say with like 70% certainty that any civilian review board proposal that the city manager comes up with will at some point have to go through the bottleneck of the public safety subcommittee.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, they would make it so. I think it would make sense in Robert's rules. What standing committee should this go through? But like, they will make certain that any such proposal goes through public safety and dies there.
Right, and we know. I mean, it's like Neil McNamara. Miss him so much. Neil, if you're listening, I miss you.
I miss you, Neil.
He got the text thread between Rick Cipro and Kate Toomey, showing pretty much, like, we can say, marching orders. That Kate Toomey takes marching orders from Rick Cipro,
Yes.
the head of one of the 3 major police unions.
Effectively by proxy, the chair of the Standing Committee on Public Safety is Rick Cipro, who heads, or until recently headed, I don't know if he's actually out of that role now, one of the patrolmen's unions.
Right. So it was so annoying to read these, like the way that most news outlets ran with this DOJ meeting, where it was like, the chief said he agrees with some of the DOJ report, despite past statements where he said that all of it is wrong, right? And like Christian King put the chief in a corner enough that he sort of had like an outburst where he was like, yes, there are things in the report that are true, and there are changes we made because of the report. They're very small changes, like not bringing your police dogs to a public gathering, which, that should have been the policy before that. Like, nothing groundbreaking was changed in the policy book of the Worcester Police Department because of the DOJ report, but they did make changes. So he admitted that they made changes, which is sort of contrary to all this like fire and brimstone rhetoric we've been hearing from police officials like Rick Cipro and all the other union heads and Chief Saucier himself, where they're like, this report is like unfounded and it's sloppy, and students were making it and shit.
Yeah.
So that's the way that most of the write-ups of this report went, where they were like, Chief finally admits that the DOJ had a few good points. And it's like, that doesn't get you anywhere. What I'm about to play is definitely the more salient takeaway, because we have a city councilor here who has like a controlling say on like the number one thing that we might be able to do as a result of this report is get a civilian review board, right? And like we've talked about before, there are many shades to civilian review boards, from being actually effective and worth the money invested in them to being total fucking scams, to being like farcical that any oversight is being conducted by these. Like they're staffed entirely by former cops and they have no teeth. You know, like if we, like it would be a good thing if we got a real good civilian review board. But Mo Bergman is one of two people who sits in a position where he can block any real civilian review board proposal. And this is what he said in this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, this has been in a subcommittee. We had a robust conversation. Unfortunately, we were unable to conclude it due to some disruption, but it's still in committee.
Fuck you, dude.
And I'm sure we'll continue to have a robust conversation.
I'm sure you
on
will.
it. I do
does that
believe
mean?
one of the comments made earlier by one of my colleagues was oversight is part of this conversation and an important part of it. I'm going to listen to the comments and conversation at our subcommittee level, but I believe the post-commission provides the ultimate oversight, as was said by the chief. In regards to any other oversight that might be proposed at this council, I personally can't comprehend how any body that could be chosen could put themselves at a scene rather than looking at hindsight 2020. Therefore, I don't believe and it would be fair in judging any police department by any oversight committee at the local level, because they're not at the scene and they don't have the ability to look back with 2020 hindsight. I do believe the post-commission satisfies the concerns ultimately of the oversight. I look forward to more of the conversation at our subcommittee, but I do have one last question through the chair.
Okay.
How the fuck does the post commission do it, Mo? Are they wizards?
Yeah.
They and they alone.
And the post commission is what, 3 or 4 years old?
Yes.
So what was it? It's not like we've always had this miraculous accountability measure built into state law.
No, it's brand fucking new, and it doesn't really even do what they're like. The post commission is like, if a cop gets accused like through another means of a serious crime that would disqualify them, then the post commission looks at it. They don't just like, they're not auditing, they're not like coming in and digging through records somewhere. Like, in order for the post commission to do something, let's say with a Worcester police officer, they would have to be somehow held to account for a crime, like to begin with.
Right.
The post commission doesn't just go find things.
It's like if the post commission wasn't there, he'd be finding a different out, right? He doesn't believe in the post commission. I feel comfortable saying that. Any out that there is for there being local oversight of the police department, he's taking it. He doesn't want oversight of the police department. This is the second vote next to Kate Toomey on, like, you remember, like, the last episode when we went over this, we talked about how Louis Ojeda is just like a fucking fish out of water there, and that Mo Bergman and Kate Toomey are just ignoring him and making all of the decisions on the public safety subcommittee.
Yeah, and if you didn't listen to that episode, you should, but just if you didn't, the quote-unquote robust conversation was Kate Toomey giving the floor to the chief to talk for, over an hour? Basically uninterrupted, with no follow-up questions whatsoever. Kate Toomey helping him, teeing him up to be able to talk shit about the fact that interns worked on the report, letting slide completely that their explanation for cops raping prostitutes is that there's apparently a a series of serial police impersonator rapists.
Jesus Christ.
And then when the public finally got to ask a few questions at the end, it went completely off the rails for a few reasons. Mainly because I think they were perfectly happy to have it go off the rails.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to finish the conversation because it was, quote unquote, so disruptive. They scheduled the fucking meeting an hour and a half before City Council.
Yeah.
City Council was starting in 5 minutes. There was not going to be any more of a meeting.
And the interruptions were at like 6:25.
Yes.
When they had to be out of there by 6:30. It's so crazy. It's such obvious bullshit. But they get away with the obvious bullshit because they just rely on like having a fucking stupid electorate that doesn't pay attention and a local press that doesn't say any of this stuff, right?
Yes, the conditions are right for them to set literally any narrative that they want. And that's why I texted you and was like, I feel like a fucking moron for having had any hope whatsoever that this was going to go any other way besides exactly the way that it's going. Because when you can literally tell any story and there is no one really to hold you to account in the media besides really you, and Brad Patrician too, I guess, and you have a populace that by and large doesn't pay attention to this stuff because it's fucking boring and kind of pointless. This is what you can do.
Yeah, and you've punished everyone who would care out of caring by just consistently telling them to go fuck themselves in the most brutal and blunt ways. It's a perfect recipe for how do I want to say this? It's a perfect recipe for a city council that is content to not ever test out whether they have authority over the police department. To go on not crossing that line, right? And it's either because they have like a nationalistic affinity to police and they feel like they're part of sort of like the police community, which is the case with Kate Toomey, like pretty clearly, like the way she uses we. Oh, I heard a juicy rumor that Kate Toomey applied, did the civil service exam 4 times and failed 4 times. Which I don't. That's other people alleged that, and I'm repeating the allegation that other people have alleged.
She's got mall cop energy, guys. We'll put it that way.
Mall cop energy, exactly. So it runs the gamut from that to like Joe Petty, who is uninterested in the violence wrought by the police department because it's never going to happen to him. And that's something that Tom Marino, every time he talks about this issue to the city council, he keeps repeating this point over and over again. You're not applying oversight to the police department because you're confident that none of the bad things about policing will ever happen to you. And I don't know if there's a truer summation of the way that they're approaching this than that they do kind of see the police as like a sort of Praetorian Guard for their like sort of right to the city, them and their demographic, right? And if that means cracking some heads, right? That's all well and good with them.
Yeah, and that is a dynamic that is not at all unique to us.
No, not even close.
We are we're up there with how badly we're captured by it. But yeah, no, they, as you've talked about before, they live well outside of the containment zone, and the police are there to keep what's in the containment zone in the containment zone. And as long as it's there, and as long as Mo isn't waking up to find an encampment in his front yard or needles in his front yard, then he's fine with whatever that takes. And again, that left unsaid because it's convenient not to be able to say it is what that causes. And I mean, yeah, if some prostitutes get raped or some people get their heads bashed in, or the dog bite ratio goes up, so what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not him and it's not his constituents it's going to affect. What I will say, Louis Ojeda, if you're listening, and I know you are, I know you put everything aside in your day to listen to Outdoor Cats. Please talk to John and Tom. Maybe talk to me or Bill or Hector Pinheiro. Please talk to some people about this. I don't think your instincts are bad on this, but it does bear repeating that the constituency that is the most impacted by this is yours in District 4. District 4 is largely the containment zone.
Right.
District 4 historically and currently is where the police exist as an occupying force.
Right. District 4 and the part of District 2 that doesn't vote.
Yeah, where I live.
Yeah. So what we're looking at here, all of this, and we should say, all of this would be a different story if not for the change in administration. I think we have to say pretty definitively by now, because the DOJ has been absent on this kind of material. Like, I was texting with somebody about how it's like really dense. It was really hard to pull like narratives out of, because you really need like the specialized attorney who worked on this investigation to be breaking it down for you and helping.
Yeah.
And the edict has gone out, and it seems like the DOJ is not going to pursue this any further than it is being pursued right now currently. I would love to be proven wrong about that, but the evidence is pretty strong at this point.
Yeah. No, and I mean that, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is a major factor. That is a massive gift that they were given by the election of Donald Trump, that a lot of the people who worked on this report aren't even at DOJ anymore. They've resigned or been fired. And the Department of Justice is pretty clearly and openly not interested in pursuing police practice and police misconduct investigations. And what DOJ could have done through the Civil Rights Division is not as much as we probably would have wanted anyway, but they could have at least continued to pressure the city into something like entering a consent decree, where they could have shaped a little bit what the response was to this. And unfortunately, that's just not going to happen. And I don't think it's going to happen for at least the next 4 years. I don't have a lot of faith in whatever administration comes in federally to, put a big pushback on this. It seems like that time has sort of come and gone. But yeah, no, they got a huge gift. The DOJ is not coming back to town. I think they're gone. We got this report, and this is what we've done with it, which is nothing, which is a real bummer.
Yeah, it's a huge bummer. There's no way around that. No way around that. This was one of the most promising things that that has come around in a long while, and the way that it's died is very, very deflating.
Yes, I think you have probably heard our last DOJ Files episode.
Yeah, and we didn't even lead with it this time. We were like, we got to talk about something else first. But at least in good news, this new RMS system that the police is getting, it's not like that's like made by a company that trains AI for drones or anything. Yeah,
no, definitely not.
Doesn't have a contract with the U.S. Navy for any sort of location software for unmanned vehicles or anything like that.
Conveniently, all of the places I can recall that the chief thought that there was room for improvements were places where we can spend a lot of money building a police security state surveillance state panopticon.
Yeah.
So we've got that coming.
And, we love to see it. That's how we're going to get our racial equity tweaks in traffic stops and such, is with Hexagon.
Yes.
A $6 million contract to Hexagon to accompany our $1 $3.2 million annual, I think, $600,000 annual with ShotSpotter, $1 million annual to Hexagon, and no one's going to benefit besides those companies.
Yes, and then whatever the line item is for body cams, which is through
Axon,
which is another
oh my god,
very shady company.
Oh my god, that reminds me. A reader, I copied this. I gotta play this right now. Axon Boston. I didn't know they had a specific Boston subsidiary. Axon Boston made a commercial. About only in the United States would you have non-consumer facing goods making commercials that end up on YouTube you see it mostly for pills and shit.
Yeah, I was going to say they're I guess elbowing into the pharmaceutical being 80% of advertising space.
Right. So this is the body camera company for that does all of the body cameras. The people the least likely but most deservedly should be saying thanks Obama is Axon, the company. And they are now making these fucking commercials. Yeah, this is from someone on a reader who goes by Deb Autry. I don't think that's a real name.
Every once in a while, a company comes along that doesn't behave. At least not the way companies are supposed to behave.
They're partying.
We're the outliers. The
like a
weirdos who dress up in costumes.
Oh, they've got a festival.
Compete like kids.
They like
Celebrate
kids.
wins like our lives depend on it. And you know what? Lives do depend on it.
This is a drone taking off.
We're making cities safer.
They show a city with bubbles, like domes over it, like
Yeah.
Every
iron
company should
domes.
be like this. Because not every company has a mission like this. So yeah, we don't do it like other
Dude, the
companies.
Boston Dynamics dog
That's who
robot
we are.
walks by.
And maybe that's who you are too.
This is Boston. This is Axon.
Wow.
We keep cities safer. Yeah, okay. So anyone who thought body cameras were about police reform, might I steer you towards that commercial they just put out in 2025. Did not have anything to do with checking the power of police, and seemed to have quite a bit to do with the central role that the police play in keeping your life the way that it is.
No one was more excited, demonstrably, than companies like this for what transpired in 2020. They hear the words police reform and they start drooling and they start imagining sitting on the deck of their fifth beach house.
Yep.
That is what this accomplishes. And that is why I am a police abolitionist, and I suggest that you consider that maybe you also want to take that approach if that's not where you're at already.
Yeah.
This is what incremental reform looks like. It looks like a public-private partnership with surveillance companies.
Yeah. It's a dead-end road. It has been. It always will be. And with Axon, we are just now seeing the dead end of that road. And it took a decade, right? Because body cameras were mainstreamed after BLM Part 1, right? Like that. This is an Obama-era reform. And we despite many people, ourselves included, making the case, this isn't the way, this isn't going to help anything really. I mean, it's very hard at this point to have another argument. So I'm glad that we're buying the body cameras. I'm glad that we're getting the Hexagon reporting software that will allow us to see more specifically how the Worcester Police Department pulls over Latinos at a much higher rates than white people. but they're just going to rationalize that away the same way that Mo Bergman just did.
They're also just gonna juke the data because
Right,
no one's
yeah.
watching to make sure that they don't. We
Right,
know
yeah.
that no one can provide oversight besides the Post Commission. Certainly, the City Council or the Standing Committee on Public Safety can't do it and won't. And so they're just going to do the data recording version of them speed running their trainings that they were supposed to take on the computer. That's what's going to happen. And
Yep. Oh, man. Yeah, so, I mean, it's abolition or it's nothing, honestly. And you might be saying, hey, police abolition, that sounds like it's far-fetched. That sounds like it's centuries away at best. And, I mean, yeah. But where has incremental reform got us?
yes, it is.
If not further down the road, and more deeply entrenched in a more worrying mesh of law enforcement surveillance technology.
Yes, and abolition is about trying. I view it, to keep myself from going insane, as a project of laying the foundations for things that I will almost certainly never see happen in my lifetime.
Yep.
But the more that they can get talked about, the more that they can become ideas that quote unquote normal people can sort of absorb. That is all work that is slow and tedious, but it's not for nothing. And it's the only thing we've got. And I also always say we should move on, but
Yeah.
abolition should not be seen as the absence of something solely. It is the replacing of something that we don't want with something that we do want.
Yeah.
And it's the much more interesting conversation to have about abolition is what would we get if we didn't spend all this fucking money on it.
Dude, so
a Cybertruck just drove
so
by.
sick. As soon, just as you're talking about that, a matte black Cybertruck just rolled up the street. Oh my god. Well, I think that might actually be a good place to leave it for at least this
Yeah.
this talking point.
All right, so got a fun one to close with. Not really, probably any less depressing, but a little goofy. We've got memes very central in this one. Everybody loves memes. We are become memes. Bill, have you heard of a little project down in South Coastal Texas called Starbase?
Not until you brought it up before we started recording.
So I hadn't heard of this either until just this past week. But apparently, so SpaceX is located in a pretty rural area in southern coastal Texas. It's kind of an ideal place if you don't care about anything that's happening around you. It's an ideal place to launch rockets from. So SpaceX has their main sort of launch headquarters there in an unincorporated town called Boca Chica Village. And they are looking to become Texas's newest town, newest city. And they are trying to incorporate themselves as an independent town called Starbase, Texas.
Oh, God.
And here is the opening to this article, which we will link to in Politico. Driving down a long, empty stretch of Highway 4 in South Texas, there are few indications that this windswept corner of the nation, bound by the Gulf of Mexico and the Rio Grande, is home to more than dense mesquite thickets and the ghosts of the Civil War. The land feels vast, unchanging, and decidedly apolitical, bigger than people altogether. That is, until a break in the brush reveals an enormous gold bust of Elon Musk staring into the distance.
Oh, God, an enormous gold bust.
An enormous
Bust?
gold bust that looks like it's probably made out of plastic because it looks like it's already got some breaks and holes in it.
Classic.
That I hope were vandalism. But regardless, So they are trying to essentially incorporate a company town. Now, we talked about charter cities and all sorts of wild libertarian projects. We did not talk about the history of company towns, but it looks like they might be coming back, folks. Company towns are coming back, and they are coming back. It looks like starting in South Texas with this new town called Starbase.
Wow.
The vote was happening yesterday. I looked before we recorded to see if there was any election results in, and I could not find that there were.
The vote to incorporate?
The vote to incorporate. Now,
oh, God.
Bear in mind, the people who are voting to incorporate are about 200 people, almost entirely, who are SpaceX employees. So the expectation is that this vote will pass handily, although there is maybe a little bit of... There are some people who think it might not go quite as smoothly as maybe they think it will. But yes, in this town that has... This nascent town that has developed, there is... The exit off the highway is labeled Mars-a-Lago.
Oh, my God.
There are murals of Elon Musk and the Shiba Inu, the Doge dog, plastered on 30-foot concrete towers. And then, just rows and rows of under construction or newly constructed company housing that all just kind of looks the same. There is a memes street.
Oh, my God, dude. This is so whack.
Yeah, I mean, really...
North Korea for children.
Yes, yeah. That's kind of why I wanted to talk about it. We'll link the article. It talks about the impact that SpaceX being there and potentially this new town forming will have on Brownsville, Texas, which is the nearest by actual real city. Brownsville has about 200,000 people. It's pretty analogous to Worcester in size.
Yeah, Texas Worcester?
Texas Worcester, and it sounds like pretty analogous to Worcester. Definitely not in its racial makeup, but in its, like sort of class demographics.
Sure,
it's a working class, poor place with underfunded schools, falling apart highways and infrastructure. And now you have the only people really with money in the area wanting to incorporate their own little town. Really, obviously, the impetus behind this is that a town that is essentially run by SpaceX can do whatever it wants in a regulatory sense in its town. So, for example, making sure that regulations are really easy for shooting off rockets all the time. There is some stuff in here about a beach in a public park that gets used by locals that is closed every time there's a launch. The highway and the park are closed to the public. This happens every time they do a launch, which is pretty regularly. And then there's a little talk from some activist organizers in the area about they're trying to push back on this, including trying to go door knocking in what will be Starbase to try to talk to people there about considering not voting to incorporate this new town. A bunch of people seeming really scared to talk to them, and then a bunch of mercenaries in bulletproof vests coming and telling them that they had to leave, even though they were on a public thoroughfare.
Interesting. So wait, so you're saying that this libertarian company town project is being policed by operator types?
It seems that it's being policed by operator types.
Huh. That's really weird.
yeah. Who would have thunk? We've never seen or just recently talked about that happening before.
Yeah. No, it's almost like the two go hand in hand anywhere they go.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, really, I wanted to bring this up because it's interesting and it's sort of adjacent to a topic we just talked about. But really, do go to the episode and find the link to this article, if for no other reason than to just look through the pictures in it and see this place, because it looks like hell on earth to me. I don't think I would thrive in South Texas anyway, for various reasons, primarily probably the climate. But I can't imagine a place I would want to be less. than a place filled with rich SpaceX people, Elon Musk murals, and Meme Street, and a bunch of houses that all look exactly the same and where everybody drives a Tesla. That sounds fucking horrific.
It sounds awful.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll hopefully have an update on Starbase. We'll
Yeah.
find out if they got a town there or not.
We'll have to be following Starbase closely. We'll have to see if they've, finally made comedy legal again.
Yeah, I wonder if Rogan ships down there.
Yeah. What I'm excited for is the woke Gestapo,
Yes.
right? Where the door to door. Have you been woke today?
Yes.
Do you know any woke? Are you harboring any woke fugitives? Yeah, because we don't have that here. It's illegal here, actually. And if you're found guilty of being woke, we're going to put you in front of a tribunal of the worst PTSD victims you have ever seen.
PTSD victims and rich guys with daddy issues.
Yeah, that's the base, baby.
Yeah, it should be interesting, and I mean, I think it'll actually, if it does incorporate, it'll be interesting to see like what do they actually do. I mean, this is groundbreaking in the sense that it is the first full-on contemporary company town that I know of. Company towns have a long and storied history in our country. Spoiler alert: they do not typically go well for the workers. But it'll be interesting to see what a modern company town looks like.
Yeah, my parents live and I grew up in one of the last socialist company towns in America, Hopedale.
Really?
Hopedale was a company town founded by the Draper Corporation, and it was in its inception a socialist project. And the little downtown in Hopedale, there's like 6,000 people live there now. It's like basically just a carve out of the bigger small town next to it, Milford. But it was actually like a socialist worker town at its inception.
That's very interesting.
I don't know the history of it and how it became to be not that, but I guarantee it's probably pretty interesting. Maybe I'll have to do some Hopedale research and come back to that for our next what is it called again? Starbase?
Starbase.
God, that's just so fucking...
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yep. It's lame-o cringe shit all the way down. But that is super interesting. We've talked about, and I think in the not too distant future, we'll do as a part of our sort of cities series or whatever you want to call it. Talking about, it'd be very interesting to talk about the history in Hopedale. But also in Worcester, we had not so much company towns exactly, but like definitely company enclaves. I recently saw listener Jenna talking about how she lives in a Norton house, and there was housing that was built by the Norton Company to accommodate their workers. I believe it was sold to the workers at cost.
Wow.
I know the Coase factory also did this, where Botany Bay, the development is, off of June Street. That used to be a company park that the Coase built for their employees who lived in the area.
Yeah.
Back when the industrialists used to at least throw you a bone or two. But it's very interesting to think about the fact that at another time when there was a massive housing crisis in this city, rich industrialists solved the problem because they saw in it a self-interest, right? It's good to have your workers have housing, and if you're planning to employ people for the long term and maybe even their kids and all of that, you want them to have a home and a neighborhood and a place that they're happy being, so that they stick around. A sentiment that certainly feels absent these days. It also, and I know you've read 8 Hours for What We Will, as have I, and as have some of your listeners. it was also not coincidentally a tool of discouraging union organizing in the city.
Right.
It's funny to go to a protest and a strike line or something and hear people chant Worcester is a union town. I wish that were true, but historically Worcester is actually very much not really a union town.
They
They were
a
very
long
good
history of
a long history of discouraging that by any means necessary.
Yeah. It was like pitting people against each other, exploiting racial dynamics and animosities. The ruling class of Worcester has been very good at that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they have.
Yeah, 8 Hours for What We Will. Fantastic book. I actually have the entire thing in a Google Drive folder scanned. It's kind of a hard book to find. So I'm saying it out loud right now. I'll put that in the description because that's a pretty cool resource for anybody who might be curious to read about the history of working class Worcester. You can't find a better book than that.
Yeah. It is really it is about this industrial period between
1870 and 1920.
1920.
Yeah.
But it is written specifically about Worcester.
Yeah.
It is not advertised really as a book about Worcester, but it actually is. And so if you want to learn that history and how hard they tried to keep everyone out of the bar rooms and how they tried to throw company parties to keep people from getting drunk on July 4th and setting shit on fire in the streets, and it did not work.
Didn't work.
Then it's a great book.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. I'm off
yeah.
to go see a baseball game in a little while.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm excited to punch this into my computer, hear how it sounds. I think that the rustling of the wind in the trees is going to be quite pleasant, actually.
I hope so. Looking
We'll
at
see.
these beautiful baby leaves rustling in the wind.
Yeah, doesn't get any better than that. So Chris, we have touched grass today,
We have.
which is it's always a good thing to do, especially this time of year. It's not all dread, it's not all horrible, and you got to recharge for future struggles ahead.
Spring's eternal, and if we have to live in hell world, it can at least be 75 to 80 degrees with a pleasant breeze.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk to everybody this time next week, probably.
Catch you later.
Therefore, I don't believe it would be fair in judging any other any police department by an oversight committee at the local level. They're not at the scene, and they don't have the ability to look back 2020 in hindsight.
Dude, this thing's so sick.
Does that also have so do you have scenes and stuff that you build?
Yeah, you can program these are 16 instruments and then 16 patterns.
Okay, yeah.
So I have 16 different 5 different